Hi, Girl Scout seniors. This is Mrs. Lori, your virtual program coordinator, coming to you from the Roanoke Valley area. And today we're going to get started on earning our Space Science Expert badge. This is a 5-step badge, and the 5 steps are: step number 1 is to uncover exactly what we're made of compared to that in the universe. Step number 2 is to study the brilliance of the stars around us. Step number 3 is to focus on exploring more about telescopes. Step number 4 is to discover the light within the darkness around us. And step number 5 will work on sharing the knowledge that we've learned throughout the other steps. So today we're going to get started with step number 1, which is uncovering the really cool parts of the universe that we are actually made of. And this is such an interesting concept. Today we're going to learn a little bit about stardust and how our bodies are actually made up of it. So what happens is within the universe, when a star gets to the end of its life cycle, we call that a supernova. And what happens is all of the particles or all of the elements that are within the star actually explode and scatter into space. Now, most of the elements are recycled and reused to make new stars or other planets within the universe. But actually, some of those elements are dispersed around our planet Earth, and we are actually made up of some of those elements. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're actually going to make a stardust self-portrait and learn a little bit more about the elements that make up our human body. And so the supplies that you're going to need today, I'm using a white poster, but you are welcome to use a blank white sheet of paper. You will also need color pencils or markers if you choose. I actually used markers so that it would show up a little bit better on the video. You also need a pencil and possibly a Sharpie or marker to maybe outline so that it stands out a little bit better. So we're going to get started and looking at some of the elements that actually are produced from stardust that are actually within us, the human body. So what I recommend doing is probably copying down the elements that I have over here on the side. And as you can see, I've already chosen some colors that I'm going to use to make my self-portrait. Now, we're also going to be making not just this self-portrait, but it is also called an infographic. An infographic is a visual that you can make to look at a given set of data, kind of like a pie chart almost. So I have chosen to do an outline. This kind of looks like a gingerbread cookie, but I'm outlining it as a human body. You can actually do this part of the step with a shape. If you would choose not to do an outline of a body, you can also choose to do like a shape, like a star or a heart, or a circle if you'd like, but I decided to do kind of like this gingerbread character here that's supposed to look like a human body. And so I would start by, like I said, writing down these elements and the percentages that they make up within our human body. And then you can do your outline of your shape or person. I gave it some eyes and a mouth. I also outlined it with the Sharpie so that it would appear a little bit better on screen. But you can kind of make this your own. So we're going to get started, and I'm going to use my pencil within the outline of my person in case I make a mistake. And then I'll go back over it with Sharpie. So believe it or not, one of the most dominant elements from stardust that is within the human body is hydrogen, the element of hydrogen. And it makes up 62% of the human body. So what we're going to do is kind of estimate to make our infographic here. So 62% I know is more than halfway. So if I were to divide my human body in half, I know that this would most likely right here be about 50%. So I'm going to go a little bit over that, and actually you can see here by drawing this line that hydrogen is actually going to make up a good portion of the human body. So I'm going to outline this so it looks a little bit darker. And like I said, we're really just doing an estimate here. And I think what I'm probably going to do within my infographic is go ahead and label 62% hydrogen, so that I know when I go back to look at my key and I start shading things in with color, I know that this portion represents the hydrogen element within our body. So the stardust, when it explodes, hydrogen is one of those most popular elements that we get during supernova, and actually makes up about 62% of the human body. Oxygen makes up about 24%. So I'm going to go ahead and, maybe start to divide out some of the rest of my chemical elements here. So that's definitely going to be a much smaller of a portion of my infographic. So I've got 24%, and I'm going to write oxygen in here. And as you can see, the smaller the part of the infographic gets, the harder it is to write in there. So you may even want to write it off to the side. Carbon makes up about 12%, so that's going to be an even smaller portion here. I'm even going to decide to write that one off to the side because it's such a small percentage of the human body. So 12%, I'm going to write carbon. And then about 1.1%, so that's a really small portion as well, is made up of nitrogen. And then really what's left is about 0.8% or 0.8%, and that is actually really made up of other trace elements. So I wrote down some examples here of what some of those other trace elements are: calcium, sodium, sulfur, chlorine, and potassium. Those are just a small few examples of some of those other trace elements. So then we're really left here with about, like I said, 0.8 or 0.8% of other trace elements. So then you can begin to color using the key that you've created. You don't have to use the same colors as I did, but you're welcome to. So I chose blue for hydrogen, so I'm going to use my color pencil to shade in hydrogen. There is blue. And actually a large portion of my infographic over here is going to be colored blue because hydrogen actually makes up a majority of the elements within our human body. So if you want to pause the video or just take a moment to color in, you can. Or you can go at the pace that I'm going at. I'm just going to gently shade in. I would love to see some of your infographics when you're done with them. I would definitely love to get some copies of yours. I bet you'll come up with some really cool creative ones. But here you go. So you shade in blue for the hydrogen portion. And then I chose orange for oxygen. So I'm going to shade that in over here on the key. And that makes up about 24%. So I'm going to shade that in here. There we go. And then carbon, I chose to use violet or purple. And so I'm going to shade that in over here on my key. Carbon makes up about 12% of the elements within our body. So then you're welcome to shade that in. Nitrogen, I chose pink. Nitrogen, like I had stated earlier, makes up about 1.1% of the elements within our body. That is not a very large percent, but it's still cool that it stands out. And about 0.8%, very small percentage, I chose a light blue, like a sky blue color here for those other trace elements that are left. So I shaded that in on my key, and then I will shade in the 0.8% that is left here. So then you're left with a really cool looking infographic to show off and to share that shows you the elements that are actually within our human body. So now you can go and tell people that we're actually made of stardust, and you can prove to them using this infographic whether you decided to make a human or whether you decided to draw another shape such as a star or a circle. I think it's really cool to kind of show off the different elements that you're made of, and you can tell everyone, hey, we're all made of the stardust that spreads out when a supernova occurs. One of the really cool things that you can access is what's called a periodic table of elements, and I will actually put this into color and put it at the end of the video here so you can actually go online and look this up yourself. But the website to look at this interactive periodic table of element is down there at the bottom. And like I said, I will definitely link this in with color, but the website is right there for you to look at. And you can actually go in and look up all of these elements that we talked about today, along with other elements. So maybe you're not sure what some of these elements are from the periodic table, so you might want to look them up. For example, hydrogen is number 1 on the periodic table, and that gives you a little bit of information there. But this one's really cool because you can actually click on it and interact with it. It can give you more information about the elements within our universe. And it also gives you a picture so you can understand a little bit better about where that element is, what are some examples of things around me that contain these elements. So like I said, I will put this in color and add this into the video after. But next time we'll be working on step 2 of the Space Science Expert Badge, where we'll actually study a little bit more about the brilliance of stars. So the stars that we see when we look up in the night sky. We're gonna actually make a scrapbook about the life cycle or the stages of stars. So definitely come back and we will work on step 2. But today you have achieved step 1 of the Science Space Expert Badge. So see you soon.